Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, May 28th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Overnight markets here, July corn unchanged at 459.5. July soybeans were down 4 at 1058.5. And July Chicago wheat was up 3 3/4 at 532.25. No export sales announcements here this morning, so we'll jump right in with what we know. Yesterday's crop conditions, crop progress and conditions report came back. We got corn 87% planted. That's slightly higher than the five-year average, 85. Soybeans 76% planted, also higher than the 5-year average of 68%. And spring wheat is 7% higher than the 5-year average at 87%. We got our first ratings, corn ratings, 68%. 5-year average is 72. And then if you look at last year, we started at 69% to put that into perspective there. Spring wheat ratings, 45%, good to excellent. That's sharply lower than the 5-year average of 66%. And winter wheat dropped a couple of points again, 50%, good to excellent, but still higher than the 5-year average of 42%. One thing interesting to note, I know we'll talk about it here a little bit. Ohio, 54% planted. I know Ben talked about it yesterday that they do have kind of a 10-day window where things look like we should be able to get some progress there, but at the end of the day, still, behind pace. And certainly an area of concern. So with that, Dustin, maybe a few thoughts here this morning, and we'll throw around the room.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Corn higher after that weekly crop progress report, not surprising. Opened a little higher, traded up to that 449.5 level last night. See if we can break through 450 again today. It feels like we're incapable of having corn, beans, and wheat all go in the same direction on any given day, right? Last night, beans are down, wheat's higher. There tends to be these, we pick a direction and we go, and the same thing with meal and oil. So the fact that wheat's higher today and beans lower, that's just a connection that we've noticed. I still think it's there's not a lot of news to go on. We have pretty good weather. We've got support in the currencies. We're within range of the calendar year high for the Brazilian real. For the next 20, 25 days to get to the end of the seasonal, I'm not looking for, a lot of negativity in the markets. Typically, we hold some value through that time frame. Every year is going to be different, so it's not a prediction, but that's just my initial thoughts of this going in this time frame. I'm generally a little supportive. We get to that end of that, June 15th through June 20th window, though, and that's usually where we have to get a little bit more serious about making sure floors are in. At least that's how we perceive it. Right now, weather's good. There's nothing really to report to get us excited just yet, though.
Sure. Jace, we were talking a little bit before the show, just agronomically speaking. I mean, with new technology, the speed and pace that we can plant now, if you got, Ben kind of alluded to it a little bit yesterday, but if you got a 10-day window in areas that are, drastically behind here in Ohio and whatnot, I mean, we should be able to still catch up and get things in before final planning date. I mean, is that fair statement?
Yeah, I think most guys are set up to get quite a bit done in a short amount of time. Obviously, everybody's different, but most growers have updated planters to where they can kind of rock and roll when the conditions are right. So I think probably the reason Ohio obviously has been behind is just the hesitation to plant in not ideal conditions, and the clock is ticking. So I think we'll get it planted either way. It's just most guys want to get it planted when the ground's ideal. And if we get to a point, they're going to, mud some stuff in if they have to. It looks like to me that window, the European models don't have a whole lot of rain, kind of a smaller system on Friday, but the GFS actually has a big system on Friday with like 2 inches of rain. for Ohio. So hopefully that's not right. If they miss that, then it looks like it's dry all the way out in the first, all the way up to the first week of June. So I'm sure guys will be hoping they miss some of those rains and get it planted. So it'll get planted either way, obviously, but not getting it in ideal conditions. Stands are going to, not be ideal and not off to a great start, but it'll all get planted. So, and I don't know if we'll see that in conditions, probably, but it goes once it grows and you kind of cover the holes and, it kind of looks great once it, you can't see past the first row. So,
yeah, right. And Dustin, it's an interesting math problem too. I mean, obviously with the way federal crop insurance works and you start getting post final planting date, you lose a percentage point on your crop insurance each day. When you still do the breakdown with government payments, the likelihood that maybe they bought a big crop insurance policy, you probably still go after corn after the planting date too, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on how far after the planting date. I think
Sure.
you're gonna get guys to still plant days 1 through 5. If it's really pushing into the next couple of weeks after the planting date, then it might just get too late where they might switch. But with as fast as we've seen things catch up in recent years, when that window finally opens, it's not a concern of mine right now. May 28th, I don't think the market is concerned about it right now either. But I mean, it could turn into that.
Sure. Something certainly to keep an eye on there. One other thing, I guess, in outside markets, I was reading this morning and I thought it was kind of interesting that there's supposed to be a interview that's going to air on Sunday with Elon Musk. And he's pretty boisterous in terms of his disdain for this new bill. Says it undermines the effort of Doge. And I think it's kind of the first real public dissension, if you will, between him and the Trump administration. It'll be interesting to see how markets react or what the overall opinion is on the Republican side as they go to negotiate this. Jace, maybe a few thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, he's not one to stay quiet if he doesn't like something, so it's not surprising. Yeah, I think he's frustrated. I think he was hoping that we had a chance to get in there and get, really clean up the books and find fraud, waste, and abuse, and get rid of some of these stupid green programs and DEI programs, and but it feels like Republicans and Democrats didn't want to give up free money coming into for their states and districts and whatever. So I think he's frustrated. He's trying to do some real good, is how he sees it, and not getting the support when it's pretty obvious we need to, we're at a point where debt is going to be a massive burden down the road. Obviously there's a lot of things on the horizon technology wise, obviously AI and things that, Basson has talked about this, that if we can keep our spending under control, we can probably grow our way out of this, if all these things fall in line. And so the future looks really bright, but it's like, why risk it? Why burn money when we don't have to? If we can cut some spending, buy ourselves some time to get to that ideal efficiency, AI growth, like it's just going to be a, like Elon said, a golden age for the U.S. And obviously that's all unknown. Right. So,
well, it's just hard to bet on their track record. I mean, you're putting all your faith in a group that, has spent, print. And now it's suddenly, well, we're going to grow our way out of the issue. I mean, that's kind of what they're selling you on. Like, in the Congressional Budgetary Office does not agree at this point. They're not as, on board with
they're probably short-sighted. I mean, I'm more optimistic than probably they are. I think the, exponential growth, S-curve type of stuff, a lot of people have a hard time grasping technology growth.
I certainly do.
Yeah, I think everybody does, right? It's just not, it's hard to imagine some of these things that are supposed to be coming. And if they do, right, the growth could be wild. So I'm optimistic, but I also don't want to just, throw away a bunch of money on DEI projects. So,
yeah. Dustin, what's your thoughts? You're shaking your head.
Well, I was just thinking, when one of the interesting like theories was like, when they started proposing this, once it was like clear that this is going to add, many trillions of dollars to the deficit over the life of this, the bond market really kind of started selling off, meaning long-term interest rates started rising. So it was kind of like almost like a reverse TARP situation where the market's telling, the bond vigilantes are telling Congress this is not a good idea, right? And the market is the best calculator. So Elon's obviously in agreement with the market in a sense. So at some point, like, you can't really control the back end of the curve. The Fed can't control it. The market's going to kind of take the reins here and decide for us. If we're going to keep doing this, we cannot. This is the most right time to actually pass something that is closer to being a balanced budget, and they're throwing it all to the wind with excess spending again. Which, granted, for this industry that growers are in, might not be the worst thing, right? It's hard. It's a hard asset export business. Something that's going to destroy the currency. You're well insulated in this business. That's good. But for the overall health of the bond market and long-term rates, the market's telling us something. So I would say keep an eye on what the market says, because that's probably the best indicator.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because part of their sales pitch is that interest rates come down so that our interest payments then obviously come down, and we're saving money on the back end. I mean, that's part of their sales pitch. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jace, but
no, I was agreeing with Dustin. I mean, look at the bond market, look at interest rates. I mean, when Doge started, I think the market started to believe like, these guys might actually be taking this serious, right? And bonds reacted positively, and interest rates coming down, and then they passed this bill, and it completely flipped and said they're not taking this serious. So now I was just going to agree with you.
It's going to be interesting. And then now you got, sharp rhetoric with Russia. This is really going to be interesting too on the next, how this thing shakes out. You thought we were softening. We thought we were going to meet at the Vatican, and now, Putin goes ballistic over the weekend. So
yeah, don't watch the wheat market trying to figure out what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. It doesn't care. Yeah.
It's a battle between crop conditions and Russia. So there you go.
Right.
Pick your poison. Ryland had some excitement, albeit, kind of bogus excitement in the livestock market yesterday with the Missouri screwworm rumor proved to be false. But obviously a lot of damage done there. And then hogs rallied after a solid midday cutout. So what are your thoughts to start the day?
Yeah, so, I mean, in a nutshell, somebody put out a story yesterday saying that the USDA is taking emergency measures to quarantine cattle that had been diagnosed, or screwworm had been discovered in this herd in Missouri, and social media started running with it. There was obviously just massive panic. We just had a magnificent drop in price, and I have a strange feeling whoever put out that story probably did not get the reaction in futures that they were intending. Just judging by, you kind of hope not. So hopefully, whoever put it out, I mean, we want consequences for that kind of thing. Like, the dissemination of false information is something that I think everybody takes pretty seriously. There's a lot of money on the line. So I mean, like, that's something that should be investigated for sure. So I mean, the market did rebound, but it almost felt like the damage was done. Everybody got freaked out. Everybody's waiting for confirmation. I was on the APHIS website all day yesterday just waiting for something. So I mean, nothing came out. So obviously pretty bogus, but it just kind of felt like the damage was done. So like, we took out a lot of stops on that break. Open interest actually, though, ended higher, up 1972 contracts. So I think that may be a good sign. Hopefully those aren't new shorts, but that would be the implication, obviously. But overall, there really wasn't much new fundamental news outside of this bogus report. I mean, there was no cash trade to speak of as of yet. And then beef prices were just a little bit mixed, obviously new highs for the move in choice. But yeah, we are getting to that point where the market's going to be really sensitive to, potentially game-changing information. The funds are near record long. If there's any good reason for liquidation, I mean, the market's going to be, it's just going to be jumpy. And like, just the fact that we had an $8 range in one day on an unverifiable rumor is kind of a bad sign, So, I mean, it just kind of hammers home the point that everybody should probably stay pretty well protected in this environment, because that was just one little headline that was unverifiable. I mean, these are dangerous times, as we see. So otherwise, on the hog side of things, pretty quiet. We did get some spillover selling, I think, from the live cattle, but we did end up closing higher, new highs in Dees and in the 26 contracts. So overall, it seems like we got a little bit of seasonal kind of support in the cutout market. Bellies were up $7.48 to a new high for the move. Carcass was up. So, I mean, it just seems like the meat's following typical seasonal patterns. I think we are seeing a little bit more optimism on the board, especially in the deferred contracts. Seems like the longs still want to stay, in this market, as it were, for right now. But that could change, seasonally in the near future. So it's just a good reason to stay protected, at all times here.
Very good. Appreciate the update. Just came into the open here. Got July corn down a penny right now for 4.58 1/4 is the last. July soybeans down 4 3/4, 10.57 3/4. And July Chicago wheat's up 5 at 5.33 3/4 is the last. One thing to note, tomorrow we do have weekly export sales are pushed today. They're going to be out Friday, usually on Thursday, but it's going to be pushed today because of Monday's Memorial Day holiday. So those will be out Friday. Appreciate everybody that tunes in on a daily basis. If you wouldn't mind, throw us a like and certainly subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to do so. It'll keep you up to speed on everything that's going on with AgYield. So again, thanks to everybody that supports the show. We're doing this live every day that the markets are open on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. Appreciate the thoughts and comments here this morning, guys. It was a good show. Hope everybody has a great day, and we look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
The War Room is proudly presented by AgYield. For over 50 years, the AgYield team has provided grain marketing and risk management solutions for growers across the country. Our veteran consultants harness cutting-edge technologies to pinpoint risk, optimize market performance, and protect your farm's profitability. Discover a new approach to farm revenue management at agyield.com.
Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.